Shalom, everyone. In this video, I'm going to lightly touch upon some of the holy mysteries behind the anthropomorphization of Elohim in the Holy Word. Now, I begin by first stating the brutal facts of the anthropomorphization of Elohim, which are that many see the anthropomorphization of Elohim in the scriptures as a very high contradiction of the scriptures, and the reason being is that on one level or aspect, we have Elohim being anthropomorphized in many places throughout the Holy Scriptures. However, it is also written in Sefer Bamidbar in chapter 23, verse 19. There it explicitly states El is not a man, right? So we have a contradiction, a very major contradiction. And again, as I have stated in my previous videos, any apparent contradictions in the Holy Scriptures are nothing more than mere allusions to the uninitiated and the profane, because the holy adepts and the holy initiates understand there to be no contradictions in the Holy Scriptures, because we have the keys, the true holy keys to divine reconciliation. And again, these contradictions, as they exist in the Holy Scriptures, are nothing more than allusions to the uninitiated and profane. Okay? So now let me unveil these secret keys that reveal the illusory nature of this apparent contradiction. Right? So the first thing to understand is that there are two mystical levels to the anthropomorphization of Elohim, right? The first mystical level deals with the fact that these personifications are a subset of the holy mysteries, right? Meaning that we need to understand that Adam essentially is the image of Elohim. Ergo, Adam is an occult symbol. It's a Kabbalistic occult symbol that encrypts the holy properties of Elohim, right? As an example, in HaQabbalah, the head of Adam or man represents the upper three emanations, right? Zadik represents the divine archetypal phallus. You have Gabura and Chesed representing the two arms of Adam or man, right? So Kabbalistically, on one level, we understand this grand personification of Elohim as Adam or man, right, is nothing more than an encryption of the holy properties and mysteries of Elohim. Because through understanding the image, we can then attempt to ascend to some understanding of the archetype, which is Elohim. And so that's one level. Now I'm going to proceed to what I actually consider an even more mystical and esoteric level, to the anthropomorphization of Elohim. Okay? We read in Sefer Matidyahu in chapter 11, verse 25, Yeshua states, he's thanking Abba, Sheba Shamayim in the heavens, for hiding these things from the wise and the prudent and not revealing them to babes. He's talking about certain, holy mysteries that for whatever reason, certain babes were understanding and just seemed to go over the head of the wise, right? And we still see this to this day. There are certain holy mysteries that the babes seem to understand very well that just seem to go over the heads of many who are considered part of the elect or the wise. As an example, we have many very well-learned, initiated Jews, right? These are Orthodox rabbinical Jews who believe erroneously and fallaciously that God, Elohim, has never incarnated into a human body and will never incarnate into a human body, and that this is a blasphemous doctrine, right? And for any Jewish rab to believe that, is really a demonstration of his ignorance and uninitiation into the holy mysteries, right? And it's really not lamentable, to say the least, right? So the point here is, or at least the Great Arcane that I'm unveiling here, is that essentially, very, very mystically, the anthropomorphization of Elohim mystically alludes and prophesizes of the actual incarnation of HaElohim. I should really say of his many incarnations, because he has reincarnated many times in this aeon alone. But that's a very esoteric topic for another video. Okay, so essentially, the anthropomorphization of Elohim is really a divine mystical preparation for the eventual incarnation and personification of HaElohim. Okay, if you're a Christian, this would be through Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, so this is a very, very mystical point that unfortunately seems to have eluded and gone over the heads of practically all Jews. Okay, and I even think most Christians are not even well aware of this very mystical understanding and arcanum dealing with the anthropomorphization of Elohim in the scriptures. Okay, now I want to read the very wise words of our most ancient Grand Master Kabbalist, Philo Judaeus, right? In his treatise entitled "The Immutable Nature of Elohim," in lines 53 to 56, discoursing on this very great holy mystery of the anthropomorphization of Elohim, he states, "Thus, in the laws, there stand forth above others two leading statements about the cause. One, El is not a man." He's quoting Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 23, verse 19. "And the other, that he is man. But while the former is warranted by grounds of the surest truth, the latter is introduced for the instruction of the multitude. And therefore it is also said," and he's quoting Sefer Devarim, chapter 8, verse 5, "like a man he shall train his son. And thus it is for training and admonition, not because the nature of Elohim is such that these words are used. Among men, some are soul lovers and some body lovers. The comrades of the soul who can converse with intelligible, incorporeal natures do not compare the existence to any form, but those who have made a truce with the body are unable to cast off from them the garment of flesh." Now here we have a Grand Master Kabbalist, a divine initiator, revealing to us this great holy mystery, meaning that in terms of holy initiation, there are many levels and grades to holy initiation, right? And those who sit at the lowest level are those who conceive of Elohim as a man. Okay, but those who are initiated at the highest levels have the true, more superior understanding of Elohim, namely that he is incorporeal, that he is not a man. Okay, so on one level, the anthropomorphization of scriptures acts as a crutch to those who need it, which are the babes. Okay, those are the spiritual babies who have just barely been born again and have just barely begun their holy initiation. Okay, but those who are at higher levels of initiation, individuals such as myself, we have a more complete, more fuller understanding of HaElohim and his nature, right? In other words, there are different grades and levels of initiation, and as you ascend each rung, your understanding, your knowledge and wisdom of the quintessential nature of how Elohim increases. Okay, and so this is the great secret. And this is why Yeshua HaMashiach, right, is more readily received by the Goyim and Beit Ephraim because they, for the most part, are spiritual babies and stand at the lower levels of initiation. And so there is a more natural affinity between Yeshua HaMashiach as a divine incarnation and the Christians, in contradistinction to the Jews. Now I'm going to reveal essentially the essence of the Great Arcane. And what I'm about to reveal here is a holy mystery of the highest order. And I'm only going to introduce it because this holy mystery goes very, very deep into the divine well, and it branches out into many other holy mysteries. And it is a very, very deep holy mystery, but I will only simply introduce it here. And basically, it involves the actual first divine incarnation, as we Kabbalists know and understand, which only those Jews who are initiated at the highest levels know and understand. If you are a lay Orthodox Jew, this will be beyond your ken, okay, in all regards. Now, we need to ask, what is the neshama, which is Hebrew for the divine breath, which animates our existence, right? Well, we read in Proverbs in chapter 20, verse 27, it states, the candle or the lamp of Adonai is the neshama of Adam. Thus, we see that the neshama has its root and its source in Hasfaroth, or the Godhead. This is also why we read in Sefer Eyob in chapter 27, verse 3, he states, all the while my neshama is in me, the neshama of Elo is in my nostrils. Meaning, essentially, the spirit of God is within Eyob. You know, this is a very powerful statement because this would almost elevate Eyob to divinity, to a very powerful, high divine figure. Okay, the point here is that the neshama has its root and its source in Hasfaroth and in Godhead. This must be fully comprehended and ascertained. Okay, so now we proceed to the actual holy mystery. We read in Sefer Bereshith in chapter 1, verse 24, the literal translation of the Hebrew is, and Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living soul. I see here that I have it, I kind of have the verse here not displaying or translated properly, but essentially the verse is, and Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living soul. Okay, we need to Kabbalistically understand that the earth is a code word for Shekhinah. Okay, and we then need to ask, who is this living soul? Right, the literal Hebrew translation there is Nefesh Chaya, which is Hebrew for the living soul. So Kabbalistically, we're operating here at the 4th, 5th, or 6th level of esoteric mystical translation, right? We need to ask, who is this living soul that Shekhinah is bringing forth? This would clearly be the first living soul that Shekhinah gives birth to, right? This would be the first actual emanation or creation outside of the Godhead. Shekhinah is the 10th emanation, and here she is giving birth to the first offspring of the Godhead, which is this living soul. Okay, this is tied to, mystically, through equivalent expressions, a very voracious Israeli hermeneutical principle, to chapter 2, verse 7, where it states, and Adonai Elohim formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the neshama of life, and Adam became Nefesh Chaya, the living soul. So we need to ask a very relevant question here, right? Who is this breath? Who is this soul that is being imparted into Adam? Well, the verse tells us that it's Adonai Elohim. The root and the source of the breath that incarnates into Adam is the Sphirah, or the Godhead. Right? This is a divine incarnation that is being spoken of here. This isn't just any soul. This isn't just any breath. This soul is the breath of Elohim that is incarnating into the first man, Adam, who is the firstborn of Elohim, or of the Godhead. Right? So the two verses are tied. The firstborn son, the first image, the first emanation of Shekhinah, of the Godhead, is this living soul who then is incarnating into Adam, the first body, the first man. It's all interconnected. And so when you understand this, then you will understand that Adam is the first incarnation of the son of Elohim, or the image of Elohim, right? This is why we read in a highly Kabbalistic book, in the Book of Wisdom of King Shlomo, I forget what chapter and verse here it is, I'll have to look it up, but I think it's chapter 7, verses 24, 25. So in chapter 7 of the Book of Wisdom of King Shlomo, and I believe it's verse 24, 25, he states, speaking on wisdom, he states, she is the neshama of the power of Elohim and the pure emanation. So here we know that wisdom is an emanation, indeed is an emanation of the Godhead. And the neshama is a sub-emanation of wisdom, okay? And so, we need to understand that neshama is lower wisdom because Shekhinah is lower wisdom. She's at the bottom of the Godhead, okay? And she represents the archetypal divine pudendum. And this archetypal divine pudendum, who is represented by Shekhinah, who is the 10th emanation of the Sphirot, is giving birth to this living soul, which is incarnating into Adam. Okay, so what chapter 2 verse 7 is essentially saying then is that lower wisdom, which is Shekhinah, is blowing her image, her emanation, which is neshama, into Adam, meaning that the neshama is incarnating into Adam, meaning that this is the first incarnation, the first divine incarnation in the entire Holy Scriptures. So Adam, who we know represents the son of Elohim, the image of Elohim, is an incarnation of the image of Elohim. Essentially, that's what Adam is. Adam, as flesh, as body, is containing this incarnation of the divine neshama, which is the image and son of Ha-Elohim. So, ergo, Adam is the first incarnation of Mashiach. Understand this very, very well. What I have just revealed here is one of the greatest of the holy arcana. Now, as I stated a little while ago, this holy mystery goes much, much deeper than what I have just presented here. I have only simply introduced it. The thing is that I have, in my first treatise, I covered this holy mystery in much more depth and much more detail. And so for this reason, I will not upload any videos that concern much of the holy mysteries that are revealed in my first treatise. I would consider that a waste of my time. So if you would like to see how deep the divine will really goes, then I would suggest you get my first treatise. So that was a very powerful, very holy arcanum that I just revealed here. So my advice is to study it very well and meditate on it very well, and you will see how deep the divine well really goes. Shalom, Amen.